What's going on, everybody? Welcome, everyone, to the Best of Worst of, the podcast where we take the bad with the good in the world of pop culture. My name is Jason, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Jesse. Jesse, listen, buddy, I don't know how many times I have to tell you, but it's after 9 p.m. Call all you want, but there's no one home. You're not going to reach my telephone.
I talk to you only out of obligation. I assure you.
Look, you're the Beyonce to my Gaga.
I feel like I'm the Kelly Rowland to your Michelle Williams. Neither of us are a Beyonce. Let's be honest.
No, you're 100% right. I'm the taller one, though. Let me be Kelly.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, you can date Ja Rule.
That's right.
And text him via Excel. Have you ever seen? Have you seen that?
No.
Okay, so that Ja Rule and Kelly Rowland song that was real big in like the early 2000s. I can't remember the name of it. I'd know it if I heard it.
Okay.
Or not Ja Rule. I'm sorry. It's Nelly. Gosh. Okay.
Yeah, it's Nelly.
Nelly, not Ja Rule.
Ja Rule was with Ashanti.
Ah, you're
like,
right.
That was the big song.
You're right. Nelly. But anyway, that's that Nelly, I love you, and that song with Kelly Rowland.
No matter what I do.
Yeah, that's a good song.
That's a decent song.
Yeah, but in the music video for it, they're like, she's like texting him, and she's got like a slider phone or something, and she's texting, and it's like the early days of where texting was getting popular, and but you can clearly see the screen, and she's just typing like, "What are you up to?" in an Excel file.
That's hilarious.
Like they were like, that'll work. That'll pass for text messaging. No one's gonna know the difference.
That'll look fine.
But like Krista, my wife, like showed me that, and like we were watching like old music videos, and I was like, and she pointed that out, and I was like, well, like I'm surprised that phone could do Excel. Like that seems, that's what kind of that's my takeaway from it. Is like we had phones back then that could actually like access like Microsoft Office and stuff.
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway,
it was Sidekick had their own Office platform for a while.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
No.
No.
Okay.
You know what? Here's what I thought. Hold on. We're going to keep going down this tangent. All right. So in the road trip version of our life, where I'm Chris Farley and you're David Spade, which I think nobody has really called out that there is that dynamic in our relationship. I don't know why. That's what we need to dress up as for Halloween the next time.
That is a good one.
I'll just wear one of your coats and completely bust out the back of it. But if we're riding in the car and that song comes on, neither one of us is turning the radio.
No.
And then 3 minutes later, we're just both singing to it.
Yes, that's exactly. That's exactly the scenario. That's in the road trip movie that we star in, where we're at each other's throats the whole time. That's the thing that bonds us. That's the bonding scene where we
Nelly and Kelly Rowland.
Yes. Yeah. Nelly Rowland. That should have been their supergroup name. Anyway.
Should have.
All of that talk of pop stars is a good segue into our main topic for the week. Jason and I are embracing our love of pop music and clothing constructed of fine meats to discuss the work of the wickedly talented Oscar and Grammy-winning Stephanie Joanne Angelina Germanotta, otherwise known as Lady Gaga.
Yes, Miss Gaga.
Mm-hmm.
I always like to pronounce her second name. My kids hate it.
Yeah. It's a dad move for sure. It's like it's a kind of a quote from The Office that Ed Helms' character says at one time. But I say this quote often when I say something that doesn't quite land. It gets a little like, okay. I'm like, that joke works about 40% of the time. It works enough for me to keep trying it. But, okay, so unlike our dive into the world of Metallica months ago, go back and check that episode out, I have a lot of willing exposure to the work of Miss Gaga. And while I don't consider myself a little monster, which is the name for her fans in the vein of a Parrot Head if you're a Jimmy Buffett fan, or a Deadhead if you're a Grateful Dead fan, her fans are little monsters, and she's apparently Mother Monster to her fans. I
just threw up in my mouth.
Yeah.
I did not know that that's what she called herself.
Well, it's better than John Mayer's fans or Mayonnaise. I'm just
That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's not true.
Okay.
But anyway, all that is to say, I'm a slightly more than casual fan of her music, so this wasn't. So I feel like the topic may seem a little novelty. Like it's like, oh, they're gonna talk about some pop star they don't, that they have no exposure to. I have a fair amount of exposure to Lady Gaga, more so than I did Metallica. And we'll kind of get into all of that in our history with Miss Gaga. Well, we're going to be saying that a lot, I have a feeling.
Yes.
So anyway, Jason, let's look longingly into Bradley Cooper's Gorgeous Baby Blues and head into the sha-la-la-la-lows for our favorite segment.
Fun facts.
Hey, that was good. Fun fact, this is not on our fun facts, but this is a fun fact. That line in Poker Face ends with a very explicit word that it sounds like poker face, but that is not what she's saying. She kind of snuck it into the lyrics. Yeah. Anyway, if you go look at the lyrics to Poker Face, you'll see what I'm talking about.
I'm Googling Poker Face lyrics.
Yeah. Nothing that we will say on our family-friendly podcast, but yeah, it sounds just like she's saying Poker Face, but she actually is saying something different. It's like an audible sort of illusion. Anyway, so born on March 28th, 1986, Miss Gaga showed a natural talent in music from an early age. She began playing piano at age 4. And she did some musical theater throughout her teenage years, and one point wanted to be an actress, but always had this really profound love of music and just like a real natural knack for it. Even by her own admission, she's not someone who in interviews doesn't heap a lot of praise onto herself. She's not self-deprecating necessarily, like she understands her talents, but even she was like, yeah, I was very, very good at piano. She's like, and being that good at it is what really drove her to really want to excel at it, and excel she did. She pursued music through her teenage years into her 20s, until she dropped out of college as a sophomore in the year 2005 and started pursuing music full-time in New York. So that's sort of her. That's a very skim the surface of her beginnings, but yeah, she's been playing music for a long time and very naturally talented, as I think is kind of clear in the number of things that different avenues of music that she's gotten into. Of course, we'll get into as we go on. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Miss Gaga?
Absolutely. So she collaborated with a number of producers and worked her way through the underground New York music scene in her performing career. I thought it was very interesting that early on she kind of got a job on a label, got a contract as a songwriter per se. I was kind of reading some of her history and those type of things, and she was writing songs for different artists on that label, like Britney Spears, Michael Bolton, Jennifer Lopez. I think I saw New Kids on the Block.
Yeah.
Adam Lambert, a bunch of different people, and I think I read this interesting fact that Akon, which Where You Gone Akon, that was that dude could sing. She was like, they were in the studio working on something, and she like sang like a demo just to try to, kind of give the vibe of the song, and he liked her singing so much he told is it Jimmy Iovine?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know how to say his name. It's Jimmy.
Told him. No idea
how to say
Jimmy
Iovine.
Like, sign her tomorrow to like some kind of holding deal, and we'll figure it out down the line. But I want her on my label. I don't know if that ever worked out, but that was kind of the first person who like leaned into her singing talent. But it's interesting. I think she has for me a very distinct Madonna vibe.
Sure, yeah.
I think she's a modern Madonna. I think she's more musically talented than Madonna, but I think she has the same pop stylings and those, and I'll talk more about that. a little bit later. But that kind of aligns with some of the folks that when you realize who her influences are, and she lists Madonna, David Bowie, Iron Maiden, Metallica, Queen, I think these are all images that you can see in her public persona that she's kind of crafted over this last decade. And I think even a close friend of hers started calling her Lady Gaga, and it was derived from the name of the Queen song, Radio Gaga, which...
Good song.
If you're interested, I had not really heard that song until when we did our Queen episode earlier, and fell very deeply in love with Radio Gaga and listened to it. It's interesting. Of the music episodes that we've done, Queen and Metallica have kind of made their way into my musical rotation.
Yeah.
I think the Beatles were kind of there. They haven't really moved. I'm
right.
just still not totally swept away, but
it's okay.
We'll see if Miss Gaga works her way into it. Anyway, she released her first album in 2008, which seems both recent and an eternity ago, considering I woke up this morning thinking tomorrow was April. That's how long this year has been.
What day is it, sweetie? February.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, it seems like she's been around for 20 years. You know, like it doesn't seem like 12 years. You know, I mean that's like 2008 doesn't seem like it's 12 years ago, but it seems like Lady Gaga's been around for longer than 12 years.
Correct.
And also considering, you know, I didn't really think about how young she was, you know, like when she started out, you know, because she's sort of, I mean, obviously, you know, she writes, or at least started out with, you know, very youthful pop music, you know, so I mean, it kind of makes sense that she's young, but there's also just like I don't know, there's something about her presence that like she could, I don't know, like she could have come out and been like, you know, had a late start to her career or something, you know, and been like in her 40s, and I would have been like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, there's just a world, not weariness, but like she seems, I don't know, she seems.
She portrays much older than she is.
She seems like an old soul, you know. I mean, and like she's just, and that's I think what I love. One of the things I like about her, from what I've seen, just in interviews and stuff, and her public persona. She's such a complicated character. We'll talk about it, of course, more. We keep saying that, but we will. She's a very complex. We don't have another pop star like her. I think that's part of the reason that I have taken a shine to her, and did kind of from an early point. I mean, I've never been one of those people that's like, you know, I mean, like I'd say my favorite band is the Beatles. I think that's true. Or if it's just like it's easy to say that as an answer, but you know, I like a lot of classic rock and stuff like that. So whereas I think a lot of people, especially a lot of guys and stuff, would maybe have a problem saying, they'd call Lady Gaga a guilty pleasure or something like that. I have no guilt on it at all. I remember hearing some of her music. I do have like an affinity for pop music, and I remember hearing some of her stuff early on and being like, just like really kind of hooked. I'm like, man, there's something about this that's different. And then as she's become more of a public figure and stuff, and you know, that pull has just gotten a little bit better, and I find myself quite excited when I find out like she's doing something new, or she just had a new album come out that I've listened to recently, partially in prep for this episode, but also partially just because I wanted to see what new music she put out. But
stop me if I've said this before.
Yeah.
Okay. This is
you've said this before. Stop.
Okay. It's completely from another podcast that I've listened to. They talk about songs that fall into the category of Tool tunes.
Yeah,
is what they call them. Mm-hmm. Have I talked about this?
I don't think so. If you have, it's been a while.
So the idea, and we should define our own thing maybe for this podcast when we talk about music. Mm-hmm. But there are good songs in their version. There are good songs that are objectively good, mm-hmm. and then there are guilty pleasures, which are bad songs.
Yeah.
That you have an affinity for.
Mm-hmm.
The Tool tune is a good song, but a song which you do not want anyone else to hear you listening to. And the thing is, if you are riding down the road with the windows down, you pull up to the stoplight, the radio's on 11, and this comes on, you roll the windows up. You're not changing the radio station.
Right.
You're going to roll the windows up and rock out to this, but you can't have the guy next to you knowing that you're listening to it.
Yeah.
So we need to define our own kind of categories for there, because I think she's got songs in every one of those categories. And, you know, most artists would. But anyway, I just think that would be a fun experiment for us to kind of invent I don't know, some sort of notation for these type of songs.
Yeah, that's tough for me because, like, again, this isn't me like trying to sound, like a hipster or like I'm too cool for school or anything like that.
Well, we know that you are.
It's
very clear.
I am not. I finished school, so I was not too cool for it. I've made it all years of school. No, like I really am not. I've never been one of those people that really have like consider something a guilty pleasure or maybe a Tool tune. Like if I like something, I'm mostly okay with liking it. I'm sure there's some things in there like I don't know. I love, and I'll admit it here not admit, but I'll say it here on the podcast. I think we've said it before. We recently talked about ABBA. I love the song Dancing Queen. Like unironically, it's a great pop song. But yeah, I guess if I'm being honest with myself, if I was sitting at a stoplight and someone pulled up next to me, I would probably turn it down, and like I wouldn't necessarily want to broadcast.
So you're willing to stand by it,
yeah.
But
I don't necessarily want people to like see me just like belting it in my car, which I totally do.
Right.
I'm sure. To your point, I think Lady Gaga probably has songs that fall into that. Like I don't know if I want people to see me or hear me listening to Poker Face, but Bad Romance, I don't think I'd mind that one as much, or maybe Shallow or something. Like those, I think it seems more acceptable for a 30-year-old man to be listening to it, whereas Poker Face, seems maybe a little bit
immature.
Yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Anyway, so as far as Lady Gaga's album sales are concerned, she sold around 30 million albums.
That's a lot in modern day.
That is over 6. I don't know if that's including her. I think that's including her new one, Chromatica, which just came out a month ago, maybe, if that. So she sold around 30 million albums. She sold upwards of 125 million singles, which makes more sense for our the time frame we live in.
Yes.
Everything's more single based than album based, I think, or at least it's sort of moving to that.
I still miss the album. I still listen. I try to listen to albums, not singles.
Yeah,
still.
I do too, and I think Lady Gaga is one of the artists that still puts focus on the album because of just her musical background and where the music that inspires her and stuff is very album-based music. I think if you look at someone like her or Adele, someone like those kind of artists, though they still put a lot of focus on the album and a lot of work into their albums, whereas someone like Ariana Grande is a lot more single-based, and or
she put out a song that talks about her feelings about how she releases music. It's called "Thank You Next." That's her. That's her response to singles, the singles culture. And
completely honest, I love that song. Like my band's listening to this and just being like, "What is going on?" Like,
well,
I like pop music. Like I sincerely like. I have a affinity for good pop music. And I think some of that's just from, I think if you grew up in the 90s, and I came of age or was coming of age and like during the big like boy band boom and, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera were the biggest people on the radio. And so it's just so ingrained in me, like I think the first cassette I ever remember getting was TLC's Crazy Sexy Cool. Like pop music was really big in the 90s. And it's just hard not to like, I just love a good 3-minute pop song,
Yep.
And
you're all about A Story of a Girl.
Who cried a river and drowned the whole world. But anyway, so as far as awards go, she has been nominated for 3 Oscars. Of course, she won one for Best Original Song for Shallow from Star is Born. Was that 2 Oscars ago? Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
It came out in 2018, so that would have been the 2019 Oscars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She has won 11 Grammys and 2 Golden Globes for her work on American Horror Story. So we're gonna.
That seems about right. She's right up the Hollywood Foreign Press's avenue. Like that's.
Yeah. She and she's won some. I mean, she's. I think she won a BAFTA and some stuff like that too. So we're gonna get this right. I got it wrong, hilariously wrong in our Pixar episode, I think. Total awards. This is every single documented award at an award show, ceremony, whatever.
Okay.
How many nominations has Miss Gaga gotten?
She has in 12 years, from every possible award show.
Mm-hmm.
She has 322 nominations.
Did you say 322 nominations?
Yeah.
She has 711 nominations.
Whoa!
She has, listen to this though, she has 322 wins.
Are you kidding me?
No. I was like, wait a second. Yeah, she has 322 wins, 711 nominations, so she's almost batting 500, but
Look. Okay. I'm sorry.
No, that's crazy.
I got to get some crazy credit for guessing 322, even that it was one of those 2 numbers.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I mean, you were
I've
way
never
off,
been that close.
No,
I was not in the ballpark of the number you were asking, but I hit dead nuts on the other one.
Is that a term?
I don't know.
I think Dead Nuts On is a Lady Gaga song. Anyway, okay, so we've already kind of got alluded to it some, but overall, and I'll do my best not to ramble, what are your thoughts on Lady Gaga as a man in his late 30s?
Thank you for that. I
welcome.
still have a few weeks or months left. My thoughts on Gaga are she can write a great pop song.
Mm-hmm.
I am, like you, a sucker for a good pop song. I think overall she's a little hit or miss for me, and this I'll bring this back around to the Madonna thing I was saying before. I think she's extremely talented. I think she is the Madonna of the 2000s. She's the Freddie Mercury of the 2000s. She's the David Bowie of the 2000s. She is all 3 of them rolled into one.
Yeah.
But I think she, early on in her career, leaned so much into shock value that for a man of my aged years, I struggled to overcome the persona.
Yeah.
While I did enjoy the music. And so I think I'm a little befuddled by the packaging, at least early on, and that she went for shock factor and undercut her absolutely immense talent.
Yeah.
And I think only in the last couple years, and I'm making some assumptions here, that as she's kind of come to grips with fame and grown into herself as an adult and all these type of things, and feeling more comfortable, that she may have, we've seen a lot more of her personality. I think for the first 6 or 7 years, everything we saw was new wig, new makeup, new persona.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing a little bit of Stephanie Germanotta the last little bit.
Yeah.
But,
last few years. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. But I think musically, again, I think she can write a great pop song. I've seen her perform, at the Super Bowl or on SNL or other things where I've seen her, and I just think she owns the stage, and she's a tremendous performer and a pianist. But maybe I'm wrong. I hate to pick nits here, but you tell me if I'm wrong or not on this. I think she only has one way to sing, and that is go all in, belt it out. There's no, and I don't know the musical term. It's all forte.
Yeah.
And it's no mezzo forte. I don't know what that means. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no,
there's not a lot of soft, small songs. And even when she tries to sing or write some of these softer, small songs, they eventually turn into a power ballad. Yeah. And all of her pop songs are out there. You know, she's singing at the full mouth, wide open, you know, top of her lungs, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
I think she's good at it, but I think she's kind of one note in that aspect. Anyway, that's my assessment.
Yeah. As far as that last point you made, I think that I'll say overall I disagree with that point. I do think that she, from her background in musical theater, her influences in people like Freddie Mercury, you know, she talks about Iron Maiden, Metallica, and some of these like real big, you know, I mean, like stadium filling bands, you know, like it's all the spectacle. I think there's an operatic element to her music, and I think that's where you do get a lot of those big flourishes, those big notes and stuff. I don't know that I can, honestly, I don't think I could name you a song off the top of my head where she does keep it kind of low key the whole time. But I think maybe she leans a little too heavily on showing off the dynamic of her vocal, like, you know, but I think that I think there's a song that'll come up here when we talk in our worst of section that I think might be the only one I can think of off the top of my head where she maybe isn't killing it at one point, and it's a really nice, pretty song, you know. I definitely think I know she has the capacity to do it. I would say,
well, even Shallow kind of starts that way, right? And then it flips in the middle.
But that's what you want. You want the big emotional
that is
hit.
What you want. No, you know? that is what you want. That is what you want, and it's always going to go there.
I would say there are other things I think in her more typical pop music, like more like her cruising lane, like when she's just like, this is Lady Gaga, this is me doing here's one of the pop songs that people expect from me when she does those kind of songs and stuff, that most of her early career's filled with, and the latter part of it now, you know, the part we're in now, has been a little more dynamic in her what her output has been. But
I think I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that there are certain things she does lean on. Obviously, you know, the lyrically, you know, sexual innuendos and wordplay and stuff like that, and talking.
Well, she does a lot about that.
Yeah, she does a lot of talking and
yes.
like, you know, little not spoken word. It's not Boys to Men, but you know what I mean.
I do not like that.
I don't either. I don't either. Boys to Men are the only people who should pull that off, or like really old, like Tex Ritter country western stars who are like, you know,
come here, girl. Yeah,
no, not that one.
You want your
like, you either want
Boys to Men.
You want like, listen, baby, you know, love is just a thing, or you want like, well, I had to put the man down, because he came. Right. His boots are spurring into my town, you know, like, or you want it.
Yeah, right.
It's one of those two.
That's the
Lady
only
Gaga
two things that you want.
Does do it a bit in her music. But I mean, I've already kind of alluded to my overall thoughts. You know, like I said, I remember being just sort of strangely, like, I remember I had a Rolling Stone magazine subscription when Lady Gaga was getting really big, and they were starting to talk about her, and you know, she was getting onto the scene, and I remember being, at that point, I was a little more like, I like pop music, but I don't want people to know. I was into a lot of, you know, like indie rock and stuff, and it was kind of the antithesis of that. So, but I remember being like, just strangely compelled to like, I want to see what's the hubbub about, and I remember thinking like, man, like, this is frustratingly good pop music, you know, and especially when, you know, some of that early stuff seems to lack so much substance, and it is just all innuendo and wordplay and stuff like that, and it's like, what message is this even saying? It's just candy, you know. It's, you know, it's hard to, I think, come to terms with that sometimes, that, like, you know, you think I tend to, or at least I did at one point in my life, think that, any artistic endeavor has to be saying something. And now I realize that it doesn't. It doesn't have to be saying anything. It can just be simply the presentation is the product. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to have some big, deep message behind it. And I think she does that really well, which is, I think, the best you can hope for out of good pop music.
She does.
And I think you does the stuff with she, as we've seen now later in her career, or more recently in her career, I should say. She shows that she does absolutely have the capacity to write more emotionally driven, music with some meat on the bones.
I agree. I think your critique of every artistic endeavor does not have to say anything perfectly encapsulates this podcast. I think we are a wholly artistic endeavor that says absolutely nothing by saying things for an hour every week.
Honestly, as soon as you come in with what's going on, I go into a fugue state. I don't even know what's going on. I wake up in the milk aisle of a Food Lion in my underwear at the end of every episode. Anyway, so
what are some of your favorite songs?
Yeah, for me, I do think I like some of the early stuff a bit more. As far as just like pure catchiness, like just there's little earworms. Bad Romance is probably my favorite song of hers, which is probably her biggest song, so that's could to be expected, I guess. I really like Paparazzi, which I honestly kind of forgot about until I was listening back through her.
It's Paparazzi.
Yeah, and I like that.
It's a little bit catchy.
Yeah, I like that song. I remember there's a fantastic performance of her she did at the VMAs, I want to say it was, when that song was big. That's really kind of, it's like a big visual art piece, accompanying the song, and she's absolutely killing it, and you can tell it's her real raw vocal. It's not perfect. It's really, imperfect at times, and it's a really emotionally sort of driven vocal performance. But there's also a lot of, as with all of her stage shows and music videos and things, a lot of visual spectacle where she's like, sort of, it's supposed to be, I guess, kind of about like, at least that particular performance is talking about, sort of the, giving everything to the press, to the public, like giving all of yourself. And she starts having like this blood come out of her, like her outfit on stage, and it's really like visually arresting, but it's a fantastic performance. I'll try to remember to share it on our Facebook page. Edge of Glory I completely forgot about until I was listening back through a lot of her discography.
That's an earworm for sure.
Very catchy. And Shallow, Shallow's awesome. It's a great song. I love the as a musician, the chord choice to go to that chorus always gets me. Like, it's not what you'd expect, and it just works, and I love where her vocal goes with it. And
it's a fun song to listen to. I've kind of sung and play. I almost sometimes play that as like a warm-up song when I'm just goofing around on the guitar, and I just like it's a fun thing.
Yeah, fun song.
I think I lean similarly to you with some of the newer stuff. I had forgotten about Edge of Glory. And Shallow, I think of a movie song. I don't even think of hers. It's weird that I just don't think of that. But Edge of Glory is great. There's something, and I think this is because of the age of my children, too, and the amount of times we've played the game Just Dance. But Just Dance is catchy, but I've never gotten sick of it. There's something about, and I think this goes for Bad Romance, too. Her ability to infect a song with catchiness at every step. So it's just dance, and then there's ba boo boo just dance or whatever it is. There's that kind of inner, and just like there's the ra ma ooh la la. Like there's just this, like, Oh, it wasn't catchy enough that you had this crazy catchy song.
Yeah, and great melody and stuff.
With a great melody and all this other kind of stuff. No, now you're hitting us in other ways. I just have always kind of liked that song. I'm a sucker for Telephone. That's why I did it at the top. I think that song is underratedly catchy. I thought it was interesting. She wrote that for Britney Spears. And when she was there, and her agent passed on it, and so she saved it and did it with Beyonce. A couple years later.
It's a great one.
I just think that's a fun.
It's another one I forgot about until I listened through the albums that we're going to be talking about in the best and worst segments here in just a moment. But also just then kind of again like I said, I'm a bit of a fan of her music, and like I check out pretty much anytime she puts out a new album, I'd go and listen to it and whatnot, and I like to kind of keep up with what her output has been. And so I was like, I'm gonna go back and listen to some some of these albums that some stuff I haven't listened to in a while. And Telephone was another one where I was like, I've completely forgot about this song.
It's a perfect little catchy pop song that is about absolutely nothing.
Yeah,
right?
And one thing, and maybe this will segue us into best of, but one thing I noticed across best albums, worst albums, and all the in between that I listened to over the last week, her like throwaway filler song on an album would be a career-making song for any other artist. Like, it's crazy to me that she can put a catchy melody, some sort of infectious little detail in a song that like isn't even ever going to be a single or anything that gets on the radio. And it's just like, man, if she'd given that to whatever other pop star, Kesha, let's say, that would have been like the biggest song of her career. And for Lady Gaga, it's an album track. You know what I mean? Like, it just speaks to like, because there's stuff.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm just like,
I think this is where we part ways on this.
I'm not saying they're all great songs. I'm saying that she definitely, I think she picks her singles well. But there are some songs I heard, I'm like, I've never heard that song because it wasn't a single or anything or got any radio play. That's a good song, but they're not as memorable. But that's what I'm saying, for a lesser artist where the expectation of output isn't as high as it is for Lady Gaga now. I'm like, that would have been like a huge song for them probably, but for her it's just kind of like it's a subpar Lady Gaga song.
I'm going to use this segue because one of the other songs that I wanted to highlight and talk about is one of those very songs off of our Best Of album.
Okay.
Our Best Of album for this week is The Fame Monster, which I had to do a little bit of research on because it's not listed in her main discography. Mm-hmm. It was released in November 18th, November 18th, 2009. And this was a reissue of her debut album, The Fame, but with 8 new songs. Now, those 8 new songs were released separately as an EP in many markets, but not every market. So in some territories, the only way to get it was to rebuy the album, which she reportedly did not care for. She didn't like the idea that the industry would use to keep an album circulating and to keep its popularity, that you would just tag new singles onto it just to keep it going. Mm-hmm. And she felt like it was expensive for her fans, which I always kind of appreciated her. I think somewhat, not that she hit it late in her career, but she had already kind of cut her bones. Mm-hmm. Or cut her teeth. You don't cut your bones. What do you do? Right. You cut your teeth writing songs and learning about the industry before she really hit it. Yeah. And so I think we've talked about this too, similarly with actors. Actors that make it when they're older are oftentimes more down to earth. Yeah. I think of John Hamm or Steve Carell. Right. Who just are more down to earth people than Zac Efron or Leo, maybe. Yeah, I don't know, just to pull 2 names out. Yeah, because that got big when they were young. Anyway, I think there's that element to her, and so she's always keeps her fans in mind.
Well, real quick, I think it's a good place to kind of mention this because it's something I had meant to mention before. We're kind of our general discussion. that's one thing I do. I think a lot of, against the whole package. I think that helps maybe elevate the quality of her music to me, or how much I like it, is her in interviews and sort of like you said, in the more recent years, some of the more we've got to see, I think, a closer, truer version of herself. She's been real vocal, for a lot of like charity. She's very philanthropic. She has, some charitable foundations she started. I think she has one called the Born This Way Foundation. She's been, super active in the LGBTQ community. Like, she seems like a genuinely selfless person. She's during the pandemic, she's really been a celebrity who's kind of really put her money where her mouth is, and she doesn't make a big spectacle of it. Like, you read these stories about her donating $2 million to a good cause for civil liberties or civil rights or gay rights or whatever it may be, and it's just like, she's not making a big thing of it. I read an anecdote, and then I'll let you get back to best stuff real quick. She seems like a good person who cares about her fans, is what made me think about it. She cares about the people that have got her where she is, because she was so, she cut her teeth, cut her bones, I guess we'll start using that saying now, in the underground music industry and music scene. And I think that creates this really organic connection to fans that she doesn't seem to have lost. But I read this anecdote where when they were doing the We Are the World 25th anniversary, like re-recording of it, yes, they were doing it for, I don't remember the cause they were doing it for, but the cause that they were going to donate funds to, they asked Lady Gaga, and she was like, yeah, I don't want to be a part of that, but I'll just donate $500,000 to that cause. And she did that. So it's stuff like that, like that. She just seems like a very well-rounded, grounded person. She does a lot of focus on mental health and stuff like that. Anyway,
that was for Haiti.
Okay.
She didn't want to be at the. She didn't want to be involved in that beautifulness with Josh Groban. I just looked up the video now, and
it's just
Randy
Josh Groban.
Jackson.
Oh God, are you serious?
Yeah,
Josh Groban and Randy Jackson.
Those are the two people that I saw that were on here.
Does Randy Jackson even sing? I know he plays bass, but
he was singing there. I'm trying to think. All right,
wow.
Here are the soloists in order of appearance.
Okay.
This is the greatest of all tangents. All right,
yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Justin Bieber, Nicole Scherzinger, Jennifer Hudson, Jennifer Nettles, Josh Groban. I'm not going to go through all of them. Tony Bennett. Tony Braxton. They used archive footage of Michael Jackson.
Okay.
You got Enrique Iglesias, Miley Cyrus, Jamie Foxx. Got to get some gospel in there with B.B. Winans. Gonna take it back to the club with Usher. Got some Celine Dion, Fergie, Nick Jonas, Carlos Santana playing only his guitar and not singing.
Of course.
Lil Wayne.
Okay.
Akon. This is where he's been at.
That's where he's gone.
Yes. T-Pain. I mean, and then they added a ton of rappers.
Yeah.
And so they are all rapping. Anyway, this is insane. And then I'm not even mentioning, those are soloists. I'm not even mentioning all the people who can't sing who showed up in the chorus. This is all on Wikipedia and is worthwhile if you want to see that Vince Vaughn was indeed one of the chorusers for We Are the World.
What? Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway. Well, sorry, I didn't mean to start off on that tangent. That is. Yeah. That we should have. You should have saved that story for one of our Halloween episodes. That was terrifying to picture. Anyway, sorry. That all is to say, like I said, it's just she seems like a fairly stand-up, respectful, well-rounded person. To have this crazy public persona where she seems like this high fashion visual artist. She seems to be very grounded, or at least has a good appreciation for her fans and some sort of general care for the world.
I was gonna ask. This is kind of another tangent, but not really. I get a similar feeling for Taylor Swift. just in some of the things that I've seen, I feel like she's tried to. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe a little less so than Lady Gaga. Like,
yeah,
I feel like she's a little more. It's a little more publicized, whether that's by her own doing or her publicist or whatever, or if it's just the media. But I feel like you hear a little more about it, whereas a lot of this stuff, it's just little things I've just stumbled across on the line.
Yeah, Gaga just does it. Yeah, no, you're right.
Doesn't make a spectacle of it, It's more of like people just pick up on it and they report it, but it's not like something that she's making a big thing about,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, now that I can
monster.
wrestle back control of this hijacked show, to continue talking about best of 2009's Fame Monster. Anyway, this is where this had a couple of some of her biggest hits. It had Bad Romance, which I think you and I are in agreement is one of her best songs, if not her best song, which only reached number 2 in the U.S., which I thought was very interesting. It also has Telephone. It also has Alejandro, which I think of as similar to your Paparazzi, which it starts out, you're not sure where it's going. It's got more of a low-key vibe, but it has this really good hook.
Yeah, that's a great song. Yeah,
Alejandro's a fun little song. The song I like the most on this album, other than Bad Romance probably, is Speechless, which is one of those that I think you were alluding to, which is an album track for her, which is the best song of somebody else's career.
Right.
And what I love about that, I don't know if you listen to Speechless, it is channeling, I think you would like it because there's very Beatles vibes. There's very Queen, and there's some Elton John vibes kind of going on in there.
Yeah.
But it's very 70s rock. It's more, I would say, more Wings than Beatles, but it's still got kind of that vibe to it, like a chord structure and a cadence.
Okay.
That I just I thought was kind of cool.
I
What's
listened
cool about
to the
this
album this week. I had to have heard it, but there was at one point I was listening to it while I was like mowing grass and stuff, so I may have missed it. But I'll have to go back.
I listened to Speechless like 5 times this week. That's the song that I keep coming back to because it was brand new to me. As an album track that I just hadn't heard.
Yeah.
What I thought was really cool about this album is how it mixed genres. I mean, this is her really flexing. I think this is her at her peak, and basically saying, "Hey, all right, my last album was my coming out party, and I showed you what I could do, and we had some fun pop songs. And now she's doubling down and saying, just so you know, I really am this talented."
Yeah.
Right. And that's where you get. You thought Just Dance and Poker Face were good. Here's Bad Romance,
right?
And it just kind of turns it up just a little bit. But she's playing around too. Like there's literally a gospel kind of vibey song on this.
Yeah.
There's disco elements. There's kind of some 80s sugar poppy kind of stuff happening, and then like I said, that 70s almost arena rock happening with Speechless, which it just starts off with a guitar solo.
Oh,
it just I don't know. It's just really kind of fun.
Josh Groban's not doing that. I'll tell you that much.
No, he's not. Not at all. Michael Bublé had to start doing it just to separate himself from the Josh Grobanites. What do they? Yeah. What do they call themselves?
It's got to be the Grobanites. The Grobanites.
No, it's got to be the Grobans.
Yeah.
All right. What are they? What are Michael Bublé's people? Are they the Bublistas? Bublians. What are
Bublians? They? Yeah, the Grobanites and the Bublians go to battle around Christmas.
They do. That's when they come out
to decide which of their leaders will reign supreme through the Christmas holiday on the radios, and then Mariah Carey comes out and stomps them both.
That's exactly
with one song.
Exactly it. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, I think this may have some of her catchiest tunes on Fame. I think Just Dance and Poker Face are catchier, but I think again Fame Monster just levels up as far as execution and pop songwriting. Critically, this kind of got an average score. And I know having an aggregator for music's been tough, but if you look at kind of the scores that it got on Metacritic, which is I think what we've used before, right? Which uses kind of a normalized rating out of 100.
Yeah.
They give this a 78.
Okay.
This is like a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
This is kind of where this is at, and I think that's where it falls, because I think while there's some great songs, there's also some pretty throwaway songs in my book.
Right.
As a whole, I still don't think this album as a whole works, because I think the bad songs are pretty. The peaks are pretty good, but the valleys are pretty low. And I find this hit and miss, which is kind of the way I find all of her music.
Okay.
But I think there's like Teeth and Monster on this are just throwaways. Everything else I think I can find value in, but to me those are just throwaway songs.
Yeah.
Anyway, I personally, and I kind of talked to this before, I just still find her... the explicit puns and wordplay that she tries to find to align with her kind of obsession with the macabre or with death or sex or these other things that she's been very open. I mean, you can find lots of quotes about her being open about her kind of obsessions with these horror movies, these other things that she's obsessed with. I still somewhat find that off-putting, but I think she's an absolutely singular talent, and I think Fame Monster... as a whole, the double album, of this and Fame showcase her at her absolute best. And that is my best of review.
I agree.
What say you, Jesse?
Mostly with what you said, yeah. I think when it hits, it's like her at her best. And I think when it's not so good, it's her. It comes off as contrived, and it's her trying to write another Poker Face or another Bad Romance. And I think that goes across really her albums following up this too. Born This Way was the next album. I think Art Pop is the next one after that. And those are similarly kind of hit and miss when you listen to those also. So I think that is a little bit of an issue that she has, is like when she hits, there's just not a lot of middle ground, like it's either really like pushing the limits pop music or really contrived, like it just sounds like she's trying too hard. There's not a lot of that kind of right in the middle, for me anyway. I do think later in her career, and you get a little bit of it on the Fame Monster, the Fame is just, like you said, some of her catchiest songs, but it's very catchy pop music, candy pop music, cotton candy, I think the Fame Monster, you start to see her using her music to still write a great catchy pop song, but now it's saying a little bit of something, and it's saying something about about the machine, the sort of Hollywood music machine or whatever, or the Fame, literally, and especially, I guess the theme kind of being the Fame is this literal sort of monster, that chews people up and spits them out. And she starts to use her music as a platform to say these things. And I think she, like I said, aside from her music being a bit hit and miss, the messages, the things, she started using it as more of a platform. But, and I think that's where she really starts to succeed in her subsequent releases. Before I jump into worst stuff, a good example is her newest album, Chromatica, which we aren't going to cover or anything right now in this episode necessarily, but just to mention it, it's a pop album. I mean, it's classic Lady Gaga pop music, but it definitely sounds more mature. Musically, it's a lot more experimental, and then there's a lot of like themes of mental health and depression and mental illness and self-worth and things like that, and you weren't getting that in these early releases. So like I said, Fame Monster, I think, is her showing that she can do that she's has the capacity to do that. She works that out, is working that out as she goes. I think it's a great next step, like to your point. It's her showing like, I am crazy talented. I'm not this wasn't a fluke. I can do this, and I will continue to do this. And she has. She has she has 6 albums that all have debuted at number 1 consecutively. So she's still proving it. One album. As we go into our worst stuff, I'm going to briefly talk about 2 albums. One is it consistently, and we should say, we didn't mention this at the top of the show, we pulled these from several online lists. There's a lot of, as big as a star as Lady Gaga is, there's a lot of online lists that are ranking her albums. I think we looked at a Billboard list. Rolling Stone had one. There's a lot out there. And consistently, this one is the worst. And that is Cheek to Cheek is the name of the album. It was released September 19th, 2014. It's the jazz collaboration she did with the icon, Tony Bennett. It was his 58th studio album.
Whoa!
And her 4th. But it is the album spawned from a recording of The Lady is a Tramp that Bennett and Gaga did for Tony Bennett's album Duets 2. So this album is a straightforward jazz album. Jazz traditionals, Gershwin, stuff like that. There is no...
This is a flex, right? This is a flex after how she started.
It is. It's her, and she's almost said as much. This was, at this point in her career, she was getting kind of disenfranchised with the pop machine and being sort of seen as this sort of hollow talent, it's all spectacle. She didn't feel like, I guess she was garnering the respect that she maybe would like to have gotten. She knows she's talented, and she wanted people to see that, and she's a big fan of many genres of music, and this was, I think you put it well, this is a flex. This is like, I'm going to put out a very traditional jazz album. So it wasn't her doing something weird, like some mix between jazz and pop. It's a completely straightforward jazz album, and a good album if you're into jazz, which I'm, I don't have a problem with. I'm not like a big jazz fan or anything. As far as jazz albums go, I can imagine that it's a pretty great one, but I don't listen to enough jazz to really know, but her vocal performance is fantastic across it. She's really showing that she's got some pipes, Tony Bennett also, he is like 86 years old when they recorded this album, and he sounds really good. Like, he has a youthfulness and like still a swagger to his voice that was impressive. Really? Across the album, their voices have really good chemistry. Yeah, like they really mixed well. It's like I said, it's a good album. It ranks in her worst because it's a covers album. There are no original numbers on it. It's all covers. And it's very much outside of her normal oeuvre, to use your word. The album won a Grammy for Best Traditional Pop Vocal, and it sold about 775,000 copies. It debuted at number 1, which is crazy for a jazz album. It was made Tony Bennett the oldest artist to have a number 1 album, or an album debut at number 1, maybe. You could do a lot worse. If you're not a jazz person, you're probably going to hate it. But if you're a Lady Gaga completionist, it's really fun to hear this different side of her and what she can do. And she doesn't even sound like her at times. Like, she has a really dynamic vocal, and she channels that sort of classic jazz vocal really well. I recommend folks listening to it. It's good. But I wanted to mention that one. The more traditional Lady Gaga release that we will highlight here is the album Joanne, released October 21st, 2016. It was a follow-up to her album Art Pop, which received a mixed response. And Gaga said that she had become depressed sort of with her musical talents and had considered quitting music altogether.
Wow.
But she began working on this album after the success of Cheek to Cheek, and also sort of the artistic satisfaction that gave her, that she kind of went and did this one for her, and so it was like, I think she would have probably, she was kind of doing it for her to some degree, and for the critics, I guess, to kind of put them in their place, so to speak. But the fact that it was so well received and performed so well, especially for a jazz album, seems to have reinvigorated her a little bit. So from there, she began to work on Joanne. So the album gets its title from the shared name of Lady Gaga. Her middle name is Joanne, and her late aunt, who died of lupus before Lady Gaga was born. Her aunt died of lupus in 1974 at the age of 19. But Gaga states that the title of the album and the title of the song Joanne, which was one of the singles off of it, of course, was used in honor of her aunt because she said that death had a huge effect on her family. And this album is, at times, an exploration of sort of familial ties and bonds and life and death to some degree and whatnot. And that's what this album is sort of setting out to do. But that's where I have a problem with it. So the album is solid overall. It's got some fun pop tracks on it that are more in like Gaga's comfort zone, but none of those pop numbers really reach the heights of like a Bad Romance or a Paparazzi or Alejandro or something like that. Where the album really succeeds for me is in those more personal songwriter-driven numbers, such as Joanne. One of the other singles was Million Reasons, which is a very catchy song, great vocal performance. And some of the other songs, there's some other numbers where she stretches into some other genres again. Like there's a song called Sinner's Prayer that's really good. There's a song called Come to Mama, which is very like theatrical, like sort of, it's just got this playfulness to it that almost sounds like a show tune. And there's a sort of political song, I think, that's in response to Trayvon Martin's death, called Angel Down. Anyway, all of that is to say, when she's letting this album be this personal vehicle for her, like she's said in interviews it's singing and it's good. It doesn't happen enough. And the album feels, again, like we've mentioned, uneven. And it's hit or miss. Because you have this beautiful song, Joanne, which is the song I was alluding to earlier, where it's got some big notes, but I don't think she really punches it quite like she does some of the other stuff that you were mentioning.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's a good song.
Yeah, good song. Got kind of a country folk flair to it. Mm-hmm. It's but when she's doing that, it's great, and I want a whole album of that kind of stuff. Almost like Joni Mitchell, Carly Simon style pop music.
Oh yeah.
But then she has like songs like John Wayne, which just feels it's not a good song. It feels like just a really lazy like Lady Gaga parody almost. There's another song where like the hook, the innuendo is like something about downtown funk or something like that, and I don't even remember it. It's very forgetful. That's the thing. It's like, and at best they're forgettable pop songs. At worst, they minimize the value of these other more personal songs that she has on the album, and I think ultimately that's what kind of where this album kind of lands. It's just not consistently memorable by Gaga's sort of standards. Where it shines, it really shines, and I think between this album, at least some of the tracks on it, Cheek to Cheek, and the stuff she did for A Star Is Born, it shows that she has a lot to offer artistically, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for her. Like I said, her album Chromatica is very much more in her comfort zone musically, but lyrically it's she's pushing herself a bit more, and there's a little more substance there. There's still some of the Lady Gaga, innuendos and stuff. I think she has a lot of potential. I want to hear her get out of her comfort zone a little bit more. And I remember when Joanne was about to come out, and there was press for it, and they were talking about it and kind of building up this release of it. I just thought it was going to be a different album, and I found myself a bit disappointed that it wasn't more even and more consistently, personal. That it was still this sort of mishmash, throwaway Gaga songs, and then some really deeply personal, sort of moving things, and makes for a weird listening experience.
Yeah, I agree. I listened back to this album, and I think think you nailed it as far as Joanne, Million Reasons, and even Sinner's Prayer. I think are good songs that, that kind of push her in different ways or stretch her. But I agree with you that the other is a poor imitation of her at her best.
Right. And I agree.
I think that's a tough thing, but I think there's 2 or 3 songs on this album that are definitely worth checking out, even though it's kind of a worst of across the board for her.
Yeah, I would say, as we close, if you aren't super familiar with Lady Gaga, or if you have a perception of her based off of her meat suits and her crazy outfits and wigs and and whatnot, don't sell her too short. Not everything's going to land for everyone, obviously, but I think that she has toyed with enough musical genres where she has a little bit of something for everybody to some degree. And I think, if nothing else, even if it's maybe not your cup of tea, I think that she has some stuff in her catalog that is surprising and really shows what sort of talent she has beyond these sort of, sexually explicit pop songs. She's a bit of a Renaissance woman. She does the acting. She was great in A Star Is Born. We didn't mention that too much. Where did you kind of land on her performance in that?
I thought she was good. I've only seen it once. I need to revisit. I thought I wasn't familiar at all with the story of A Star Is Born, so I was kind of intrigued with where that went. I thought she was good. I mean, some people are like, "Oh, can she be an actress?" Everything she does is acting.
Yeah.
Every stage show she does, every persona that she put on.
Yeah.
So I think she's really, really good in it. She's there's a kind of a magnetic chemistry between them. I think they struck lightning with that. Yeah. That kind of pairing. Yeah. But I don't know that her and anybody else that it quite works like that. I think if you want to see, go watch their rendition of that at the Oscars that year when they sing "Shallow" together. Yeah, it is unbelievably electric. It is just
ended Bradley Cooper's marriage.
yes, this song is.
It is good.
It's really good. I thought the movie was above average, not great.
Yeah, I felt the same. There were moments, and I did think she was surprisingly good. Hopefully it wasn't lightning in a bottle for her, and I hope that she's got another role I know lined up where she's playing. It's like a true crime story. She plays like I want to say it's like the widower of somebody of a Gucci.
Yeah, the Gucci
murder, hitman murder or something. I was going to say a Gucci man. I'm like, well, that's a rapper.
Somebody in the Gucci Mane.
Yeah, excuse me. Some male in the Gucci family. She plays the widower of it in a true crime. That's her next role. So we'll see. I guess if it was kind of lightning in a bottle, and she was, she's got that. But yeah, everybody go check out her music. Dig into some of those lesser known tracks. Check out Speechless. Jason, I think you got my interest peaked on it. Hopefully,
it's a good song. Yeah. It's a fun little song. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for listening to our discussion on Lady Gaga. We hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, rate, and review us. Find us in all the usual places: Apple, Spotify, Google, Stitcher. We're on YouTube now, and we're on a mission, okay? We have 2 subscribers on YouTube, one of which is me. So we've got to up our game on the YouTube. I don't know if people are just not consuming things. I don't know if we need to post videos and other stuff there, or what we need to get going. And I say this because
we need to do TikTok dances. That's what it is.
That's what we need to do. So I have a friend who is a music teacher, okay? And he's been doing some online ukulele instruction and other videos that he's done. And he has 14 subscribers. And I am on a mission to pass him.
Okay.
We've got to get BOWO past 14 subscribers. This is the goal. So please go to YouTube and subscribe to us. Email us at bowopod@gmail.com. Hit us up in all the social media faces at bowopod. Interact with us. We appreciate you.
Yes. Thanks to the band Amigo, as always, out of the Charlotte, North Carolina area for the music throughout the episode. They're no Lady Gaga, but they're pretty darn good. And to Wes Forbus for our podcast artwork, who also not a Lady Gaga, but he has been known to wear a meat suit. Most of all, thank you guys for listening to Best of, Worst of. Jason, let's knock the Lady Gaga episode out, man. I'm excited. I'm kind of a fan. I've been looking forward to this one, and I love that you've gone all out. It looks like you're rocking that classic Gaga meat suit.
Actually, I just had Arby's for lunch, and I'm pretty sure things just got out of hand.
Yeah, dude, that's a lot of Arby's sauce, man.
My life is in shambles.